you can see we're in a little bit of a different setting than the normal barn. I'm back at my house working on my 2017 Focus RS. I should be bringing the brakes to get powder coated tomorrow. Before I go and drop them off at the shop, I wanted to do a quick teardown video, just a top down, looking at the calipers and my step-by-step of how I pulled them apart. Obviously, I already have it off the car. If you watch any brake jobs or how to swap out your rotors, you'll know how to get to this point. Disconnect your brake lines, pull them off the car, put them on the table, and that's where I'm going to take off from and get you through completely disassembling them, getting them down to the bare caliper so that way you can bring them to your powder coater or do it yourself. But in the interest of time, I'm going to pay somebody to powder coat them for me. So let's get the camera over here and work on disassembling these brakes. Okay, so now that we're over at the table, we're going to get to work on pulling the front caliper apart. So for the time being, we'll just set the rear caliper aside. Careful not to lose any small pieces. On the front caliper, you have all your hardware that mounts it to the car and mounts the pads inside. I'm going to work on cleaning this up a different day prior to putting the brakes back in the car. So we're just going to set it aside in this bag and we'll get to work on the caliper. On your front calipers, you really only have to worry about the 4 pistons and the 2 bleed screws. Other than that, you're going to leave your cross connect line, and yeah, that's it. Those are the only things that really come out of it. That and the seals. So we're going to leave the bleeder screws in first, and we're going to work on the 4 pistons. There are special pliers that fit inside of the holes. I couldn't find any that were specific to Brimbros or fit inside of this diameter. Maybe I just wasn't looking hard enough, but I'm just going to go with the old-fashioned way of opening up your brakes, and that's just using a light amount of air pressure and a block of wood, since we're using 4 pistons on each side. Start off by putting your block of wood or something of a similar thickness in the middle, and then you're going to grab your air nozzle and you're going to stick it into the banjo bolt hole. That will force air into the piston areas and it cause them to expand. I do want to preface this by saying do this at your own risk. This is extremely dangerous. If you use too much air, you can actually shoot the pistons out of it, and who knows where they're going to end up. I know there's countless videos out there of guys doing it where they just hammer the air into it and the piston pops out. With that, you run the risk of hurting yourself and also damaging the pistons. I already dropped one of these pistons once I got it out. They dent very easily, and now I have to buy new pistons, which I was trying not to do because they're perfect. They were perfectly fine. So all I'm going to do, I'm going to grab my air nozzle. Very light amount of air. Like that's probably enough air, and I'm barely on it, right? So I'm just going to hold my hand over, a little bit of air. You heard the pistons and probably saw them expand. Set that aside. Now you see they're basically grabbing the wood. Just wiggle the wood out of there. I found that usually one side will push out before the other side. Not a problem. I'll show you how to deal with that in a minute. But for now, we're going to work on getting the dust boots off and then work on getting the pistons out. When you get a pick set, the pick set will usually come with 2 types of picks. It'll come with a hooked one, and then it'll usually come with a flat spade, which you can see I've already destroyed in getting these off. Big thing to use brass. It's soft. It shouldn't damage the metal that you're hitting it against. I like to just take this flat spade bit, put it against in this corner, hammer down a little bit, and then they pop right out. So I'm going to go ahead and do that for these 2, and then show you how to work the pistons out. I probably made it look easy because it was the second time, third time this has already been off. Don't get discouraged when it takes you a little bit more effort than that just took. Okay. Now the next part that people will probably cringe at is going to be grabbing the piston with a pair of pliers. This upper part, all that it does is push on your brake pad and have a lip for your dust boot to grab onto. So it'd be ideal to have the special pliers, but I don't. So I'm going to use a pair of vice grips. Very, very slight pressure. And all I'm going to do is wiggle it back and forth and then slowly push into the caliper. Add a little bit more pressure. And the piston comes out. Now, as I said, you want to be very careful with these pistons. They are very soft. So I dropped one, already destroyed it. So I like to clean them up real good. Clean my hands off because they're disgusting. I have this prepared Scotch tape already. And just wrap it up. That way the edges are less likely to be damaged. Throw that in our little bag of goodies. Okay, another one. Same thing, we'll wipe it off. Give it a once over, still looks good. Grab our tape. Roll it up. Nice and protected. Release all the surfaces we care about. In she goes. So now you've got two pistons on one side and none on the other. So if you grab your air and you blow air, it's just going to come out these two pistons. Cylinders. So to get around that, we're going to take off this bleeder screw, which, yeah, it's a 7/16 to get the bleeder screw to crack. I don't know if there's a metric equivalent. So we'll take that out. And while we're at it, let's just grab the other one that I pre-loosened. Like Rachel Ray over here. Okay, got that out. So now we're going to put our air into here and blow the pistons out. Again, grabbing our block of wood, putting it down inside so the pistons can't escape. Since air can escape out the other side through the crossover line, I found you need a little bit more air and they'll come out. But just ease into it and be careful. Okay, get our block of wood out of there. This dust boot already cleared itself. See if we can just get this one. Yep, there we go. So we've got our dust boots all out of the way, and our pistons are pretty much ready to just pop out. I don't advise holding your hand in there and blasting with air and getting them to pop out. I'd rather use the pliers, be safe about it, and only slightly mar up my pistons. So this is the one that I actually dropped, so I labeled it bad. And we're either gonna try to polish it and restore it, or I'll buy new pistons. Probably the latter, to be safe. I know it's a terrible angle, but as I said before, I'm just twisting it so the O-ring can slowly work itself down the piston and then it pops out. This piece of tape got a little destroyed, so we'll get that a new piece of tape later. And that's it. So now your front Brembo brake is completely taken down. Oh, actually. Last thing to do is to go into all the pistons and grab your O-ring out of there. That's why I like the hooked pick. Reach in. I'll try to see if I can get a camera angle on that. All that we're gonna do is reach in behind the O-ring. Try not to touch the cylinder walls. I know it's brass, but you don't want to take your chances of scratching stuff. Get in behind the O-ring. See if we can't get a slightly different angle so you can see better. My hand's probably blocking all the light. They come out pretty easy. Use a brass pick. Don't destroy your piston or your cylinders just because you used a steel pick. Very easy to do. Those steel pick kits, they're nice, but they'll ruin stuff. Okay. So now all of our seals, our bleeder ports are out, all of our materials off, and this caliper is ready to go powder coating. Biggest piece of advice, the biggest part, or the biggest danger of powder coating is right here. See how there's no metal? See how there's no paint where the banjo bolt and the copper rings sit here? If you get paint there or powder there, and your brakes get hot and the powder remelts, now your banjo bolt, which was tight, becomes loose and then backs off. You lose your brakes, you slam into a wall, bye-bye race car. Hopefully you survive. So be safe. If you get them powder coated like I am, make sure that this is not covered when you go to put them back on. Same thing, pretty much anywhere that doesn't have powder on it now shouldn't have powder on it when you get back. Take some pictures, front, back, all around, so you know what the brakes looked like when they left and what they should look like when they come back. All right, let's get this set aside. Big stretch. Now we'll move on to the rears. Same thing, the rears had the brackets, the slide pins, and the other hardware associated with putting the brakes together. So let's separate this hardware and put this aside in our little bags. I just got little sandwich bags, labeled everything, which brake goes where, so that way as I go to put everything back together, I don't get confused on what went where. I know the parts should be interchangeable, but keep all your parts with the caliper that they're supposed to go to. So we're done with this. You took the bolts out. Good job. Goes in the powder coating box. Now we're going to get into taking apart the rear caliper. This was the biggest pain in the rear end to get apart. There was no information. I think I'm the first person that's actually putting out anything for this, so hopefully this helps somebody else. But we'll start off by taking apart the easy stuff. Our little cap, our dust boots and slide bushings for the slide pins. If you use a pair of pliers with cutters like I am because I'm an animal, just be careful not to go too deep and cut the boot. You don't want that. So grab with just the pliers. I like to pull in towards the center and twist and then bend around, and the boot will usually start to work its way out. Easy peasy. Other one we can jump into is getting the bleeder screw out. Yeah. So we'll take the bleeder screw out. Boop. We'll jump over here and work on taking our brake line out. Was it this guy? Yep. So a 9/16 will help you pull this off. My brother's been giving me crap about not having braided lines. I'm working on it. And we'll work over here towards the piston. Now, same little trick. Grab our spade pick that has been properly hammered down, and we're just gonna sit right here, tap it with our hammer. I've already done it, so it's really easy. Same thing comes right out. Now, for getting it out, I think I read that people said you can just actuate the parking brake lever, and it'll slowly work the piston out. Does not appear to be doing anything for us, so we'll go to the next phase of putting our block of wood in. We'll put our bleed screw back in just to make our lives easier, since that little trick didn't work. Okay, and again, just a little bit of air. Piston comes out. Comes out really good. Okay. Now I cheated. Putting it back together with the O-ring in there was a real pain. So the O-ring currently isn't in there, so I can just twist this out easy. So I'm just going to twist it out. Same thing, be very careful with your pistons. You don't want to scratch this surface in any way, shape, or form. That doesn't make a good seal, car doesn't stop, wall, once again. So these ones I actually just wrapped up in the rag. I didn't put tape on them. So we'll put our pistons aside. There's nothing that has to get broken down in the pistons. There is some sort of spring-loaded mechanism in there. I don't care to take that apart. You shouldn't care to take that apart. What you do care to take apart is the spring-loaded mechanism on the inside. Now, I'll cut to the clip showing the spring-loaded clip outside of it prior to me doing this. So you saw that. It can be done with just picks. That's how I got the first one out. It was me with all these picks sitting here with all the pointy ends, in a configuration and prying outwards. So as I pried outwards with the pick, it hinges and it forces the tabs in of that spring retainer. So if you want to see it done, I'll try to take a video of it. I got the thing out. I promptly took a bunch of measurements of all in here and around there. I designed and 3D printed a tool that really easily just slides in there, compresses those tabs, and pops it out, as well as helps you install it, which I'll put a link to the forum post about uninstalling and reinstalling this mechanism. But really quickly, this is my Mark 1. I printed out Mark 2, but I haven't cut the brass rods yet, so I'll get to that later this week. But really simple. There's 6 tabs that need to be depressed, and there's enough for 12 slots on the spring clip. When you get it out, it'll be more apparent how it lines up in this tool, but that's why there's 12 brass rods and only 6 tabs. So we're going to take this, real easy, just rolls right in there. You kind of clock it side to side, it'll find the tabs where it's happy. I'll do this. And you just wiggle it side to side, a little bit here and there. You'll hear the tabs release. There we go. All right, so I was landing just a little off, but let's get this out of the tool. So the spring clip, now that it's out, now that I can talk about it, has these 6 main tabs that have to be depressed. And again, you can take your pick, put it all the way down in the hole, and you push in on the tab. But you have to do that for all 6 simultaneously. You could probably get away with doing 3 on one side, get it to pop up a little bit, and then do the 3 on the other side. So maybe it's not as hard as I tried the first time, but I made this pretty slick little tool. All it does is it slides in, and since inside the caliper, in there, the spring is sitting at the bottom, pushing up on the spring tab, spring retaining clip as I've been calling it. So when you push the tool down into the caliper, you have to kind of work it down so it slowly pushes these tabs in and releases from the shoulder in the brake. That was like one of the hardest things to do because nobody could tell me how this comes out. And most anybody that had some sort of knowledge to say about it said to buy a new set of calipers. Buying a new set of calipers doesn't help you because you'd have to do this anyways so you could powder coat them. So once you have that, there's a screw in the center that comes out. It's got a little O-ring. I'm not going to take that off at the moment. I'll wait till I put them back together to pull the O-ring off. But we're just going to set that aside because that's not going to get powder coated. And then deep in there is this little keyway, and that's what transmits the motion from this lever arm to this screw. Okay, so that's all the stuff on this side of the piston out. Now we move over to this back end, which will take our bleeder screw out once again. And as you can see, this pin is already pushed out. That was one of the big problems I faced. I couldn't tell if it was a screw or a pin. I eventually figured it out talking to my father. He suggested heating up the area a little bit with a blowtorch, and then there's a hole on the back side. You'll see right there. And then you just heat it up very little. Like I barely even, like if you remove more paint than I did, it should be just a little bit of white, the undercoating. And the pin should come out with, I think it's like an 1/8 inch punch. Get a short one so that way it doesn't have a chance of bending. I grabbed it in a vise this way. I didn't see anything wrong with it. I still don't see anything wrong with it now that I have it apart. Grab it in a vise, and I'll cut the video in of me punching this out. Okay, now that we're back, I got the pin out. It does have a spline cut in it, and it is press fit into this hole. I'm going to set that aside, save that for later. Now the last two pieces is your parking brake lever. Up in here is where that keyway sits, and that's what, as it rocks back and forth, pushes your parking brake to engage. Got that, and then there's this last rubber boot, dust boot, and same thing. I came in here from the inside and slowly worked it out so it would pop out. Again, I've already taken this out, so it was a lot easier the second time. It's a little loosey-goosey now, but now that all of that stuff is taken care of, this caliper is ready to go get powder coated. So like I said, be careful, be careful, be careful. Adding air into the piston chamber, it can shoot out, it can hurt you. Be very careful. I think that's all I have for getting these apart. Once I get them back from powder coating, I'll shoot another video of reassembling them. Thanks for hanging around. Sorry this was such a long video. Next one will be short and sweet.